Good, gentlemen. Yes, of course, we're here, back in the circle of wisdom. Oh, welcome back.
Thank you.
Seems like you never left.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So one of the questions that arises relative to the porch conversation is, do we already know? Right, but don't know we know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what in us is the knowing part, and what in us is not that? Or what is maybe hierarchical knowing? You know, there's the ultimate knowing, and then there's little knowing, and little knowing all the way down.
Is that your answer?
Is that how it is?
Is that supposed to be a question? It sounds like an answer. Okay. Well, that's how it is for someone. No? Mm-hmm. 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 Not only is every individual being, we're talking about humans in this case, a part of the whole, see, an important piece of the puzzle, maybe an unknowing piece, but it is the whole thing itself, see, like the finished product. Finished product, but the potential is still infinite. So you finish product so that you can realize your potential. So, and sometimes you have to think about it, sometimes you have to feel about it, sometimes you have to have a mishap, and then you're forced to look into what it is from the point of view of a shock. And all of this is part of our unfoldment. So, well, before my mishap, I never thought of things such as that. I didn't know I could do these things, and all of a sudden you have a shock, and shakes you out of your ordinary condition, and you are in an extraordinary condition. So, this is part of being the whole, but not knowing it until the right condition arises. So, upon the right condition, whether that's a relationship that shocks you, or a thing that shocks you, or an event in time and space that shocks you, sometimes that's what you're waiting for. So,
Aren't there degrees of knowing though? Like I can, I know what this cup looks like, but if you give me a year to scrutinize it, I'll know it better. So maybe
you're going to know it better than you know it now, as a cup.
Yeah,
As a cup, but right now you already know it's a mass of particles. Say atoms. Already you know that. Say, we already know that. That is to say, before it's reduced into something that seems to be truth, we already know that.
But that's just
we already know that everything is subject to fire. See. Subject to fire, to the burn. See, everything can be melted down. So this is an innate knowledge of that. See, that fire is a very important part of the creation, even of this, and especially of this planet. See, fire is also what feeds us, that which keeps us alive from the point of view of the sun. The same thing. So you have the solar fire, and then you have internal fire, and then you have volcanic fire, as the planet, say, is supposed to be, a Vulcan planet. Say, on fire and from fire, and therefore we have volcanic sort of transformation. Say, metamorphosis, whereas the Earth is recreated at the surface level because of volcan activity. Say, which is common in the solar system and in the universe. Fire born. See, we are fire born of fire. See, we're fire beings. so to speak. And that fire is in us. It's called life force, creative force. So, and that's original. So anything else that we're thinking about is from that. So the idea is, in spiritual practice, realize that, see, in the moment. And everything else is effect, born of fire.
Oh, so it's
Everything.
sort of like, maybe an example is,
Mhm.
I don't know, like an equation like F equals ma. You can plug in anything. If you know that equation, you understand it. I can give you any object,
Mhm.
any dimensions. As long as I tell you what the numbers are, you can plug it in and you'll know exactly what's going to happen with respect to those variables.
Mhm.
Is that the kind of knowing you're talking about? Like a kernel of knowing that explains everything?
Well, it's an intuition that transcends that abstract or theoretical construct. It's a formula or equation, right? Because that's what astrology is, a system of equations. So, it's all
So you're saying
equations.
there's something even more fundamental than those, that kind of contains them?
Well, you are the fundamental. So you're the one that is expressing your knowledge and experience of the equation, but we are the original equation. And so from the result of the original equation of being, intelligence, then all of these other relative equations show up. So there has to be an origin. The equation didn't come out of nothing, so to speak, except yourself, which is nothing. Originally, unconsciousness. Can't forget that. No unconsciousness, no consciousness. Out of sleep, you have awakeness. We go right back to that. What's the formula of that, if not life itself? Birth. And of course, death, which is another form of life, say, manifestation into what is the effect of life? Death, rebirth, the continuum. Then you have that word that's used in physics, the continuum. Right, even more now than ever before. So it's only a continuum. Ad infinitum, to the infinite. But now we're talking about religion, right? The mystery, the great equation. See, no self, no thought, no mind equals no problemos. Did you hear that equation?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah, that's an original equation to complement Einstein's equation.
But are you saying, I guess the original point, right, is knowing already without having to do any work?
Figure, yes, because it all comes from there.
Right.
When we talk about intuition, we're talking about a process of baking. Baking in order to give birth. See, we're cooking something. Sometimes it takes forever, sometimes it takes a flash. It's cooking. Right? The intuition is something that is doing the cooking, and then all of a sudden, boom, but it could happen in a split second, right? It could happen over years.
Well, but what they say is that...
Yeah, but we're not talking about what they say.
Oh, okay.
Right, it's what you say, not what they say.
What I say.
We're not going to books.
No,
we're going to your experience.
What the people
Right.
who
This
are
is self-realization,
smart say.
not self-theorization.
Not the authorities, but the people I like, the ideas I like. They say that intuition does the difficult work. That does the real work. And then
Why though? That's the question. Why? Why does intuition? Why? Because it's deepest
right.
already. Intuition. Right? I mean, it's not known superficially, but under the right conditions, it shows up as a spark of light. See? It's an enlightenment, an intuitive enlightenment, relative to the results in physics, medicine, science, general, art, which is human intelligence, the instinct to save someone. Where you didn't see yourself as savior before, and all of a sudden a circumstance, a condition shows up where you see that you have the power to save somebody, and you jump in. Irrational. So we're talking about the beauty of irrationality, rather. See? Irrational, completely irrational. It's like jazz. Irrational.
Yeah, or building a robot.
Irrational. It's even more irrational than that.
That's
Then the irrational would be why to build a robot.
But that's arguably the most rational activity a human could.
Well, that's a production of a result. So that's rational in terms of material manifestation, but it's not really rational beyond that. See?
Well, the concept.
Because when people see your product, they're gonna say, "Why?
That's true.
What's wrong with you?"
But probably a few things. But I can't. It's. I can explain the things, the reasons.
Well, explanation is not going to be an issue. See, that's what you can do. Maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe your function then is not so much to explain things, but to express yourself. See, it may be as simple as this guy needs to talk. Now he has found something that he feels is worth talking about, right? Something that reflects you. So it expresses you, your form. See? And we're saying that's okay, that's part of the median. That's in between. See? And so that's you in terms of, let's say, the material universe. What about the you? Same thing, but in terms of beyond that. Beyond your perception.
That is the point of the robot.
See, beyond your perception.
You want to move beyond perception. I think.
Well, the robot is perception. It is a thing that's made of a system of perceptions, imaginings, or let's say thinkings and so on. It's a product like incubating a baby, right? If you have your sex, and then you have to wait until this thing comes out, it's cooked, and then boom, it's born. But it's the same thing. It's everything. The same thing as everything. Same process. It's just another thing. Even if it's a unique thing in your mind, it's a unique thing because it came from you. We're not saying it didn't.
Well,
but it's just another thing. This is what you need to grasp, is that it's just another thing.
No, it's a lens or a mirror.
Same thing. That's another thing. This is another thing. It's another thing.
I'm trying to enhance my ability to see the world. The only way to do that is to understand seeing itself, and the only way to do that is to build it.
You mean to understand the seer?
Yeah.
Who the original seer is the best way to understand it.
Well,
so then you see that only seeing occurs. It's only seeing. It's only seeing. You can see seeing. If you can see seeing, then you're understanding something that is a dynamic of, let's say, intelligence. See seeing. You have to see seeing. Like musicians have to hear hearing, if they can go that deep. So you have to know knowing, you have to think, you have to think thinking.
That's the point.
See? No, that's the problem. That's not the point. See, that's the problem. See, that is the problem for most people, because they believe that to be the reality. And there is no reality such as any of these, let's say, stages.
Very cool. Well, we're still rolling.
Pause. See? What was rational about that? See? That's what I'm talking about. What we don't know. See? The irrational, the mishap. Huh?
Oh,
see?
That sounds creepy.
See, that's the mishap.
The aliens did that.
Well, no, I'm saying whatever it is, it's all part of the same thing. It's another thing that happens. See? So the real thing for the Enlightenment people is no thing. See? Not to get up in all the myriad things, to be distracted from the no thing, which is the ultimate thing. And that becomes a big riddle. What is the no thing of the sages? Why are they so preoccupied with this conversation about no thing? It's like the ultimate no thing, right? Because they already know that there's nothing but things. And we do nothing but things, and we create nothing but things to look at, to hear, to perceive. So we're talking about things of the perception of human intelligence, the perceived, and the perceiving of things, whereas even perceiving is a thing. Perception is another thing. So when and how do we get to the no thing? Realization of no thing as matrix source for all things.
Is that the end goal? What you're describing? Is that where an enlightened person should be trying to end up?
Well, that pertains now to the basic fact scientifically speaking, of the unconscious as source. Sleep, deep sleep as source. Without deep sleep, who are you? What are you? With deep sleep, you do what you can do. You're normal. You're ordinary. You are subject to your own inherited robotics, your instinctual life mechanisms, right? Extending from the ancestry. And so then it becomes a question, do you invent or does your ancestral line invent through you? It's a question. And then that depends on whether or not you can see or sense cause beyond your self-image. Cause. Say, well, I'm moved to do this. Cause. Coming from where? Something deep inside? We're talking about intuition. So, inherited intuition. Extended intuition. Okay. When we talk about the line of musicians from, let's say, the Bach family and several, if not infinite generations therefrom, we're talking about the intuition of music. They already hear it, they already feel it. It's inbred. They don't know it, but it's there. And so then we're talking about a genetic compulsion or impulsion to continue the hearing of, let's say, the Bachian approach to music. It's born. So then it's not the individual as much as what the born is responsible for. What born means. Extended. Well, extended. So you were born from your parents. So what you are doing is extending that. With all due respect to where you come from. Not who you believe yourself to be, but what it is. So what it is itself. So coming through you. Then, let's say, you're serving a creative function relative to the gene pool as a child born to parents with a certain kind of intelligence or need to know in the way that you do, scientifically. It's not a problem. But it has an origin. It's going down the line. So in other words, there's a developmental point of view regarding this result of creational manifestations, same as in my case, relative to music, ancestral accumulation, and it comes out. That's why I can say, well, I don't do it, it does it by itself. So it happens. And then the Zen gurus would say, nothing happens because it happens. Only it happens. Like the day the sun rises, it happens. You don't do it. You have to catch up with it, right? The rain falls, the sun shines, right? The crickets chirp, right? All of these things occur. The grass grows. Nobody's doing it. It just happens. So it's a happening, right? The marvels of creation, life, right, in the universe is happening by itself. Nobody can take credit for it except when you wake up as a human, then you can account for your perception of what already is and what it's always been. Self-creating is called the universe, right? The living universe. And that's it, it's life. And we are little particles of life doing what we can to help other beings, we hope. That's why you do what you do, and maybe that's why I play what I play in the service of other beings. Maybe they can gain something from it. We hope so. We hope that we enjoy it enough to say, well, we know it's enjoyable because we dig it. This is good because we like it. Say, hey, try this. And it kills somebody else. I can't handle it. All right. Comment.
Yeah. Yeah, the quality of that situation where we realize that we are self-arising oneness, yet we still think we're a self and we have choice and volition and activity that we do.
We do, but we don't.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so we're
In other words, it appears that way. But we're not the appearance, and the thing itself is not the appearance. It's a process, again, of extension to the infinite. And we as humans have a very limited lifespan of just a little blip, years, maybe 100 years. It's a little blip in terms of time. But we'd like to think we're doing something that is of quality in terms of what we can produce for the sake of others. That's an intuitive understanding of why people are moved to do what they're moved to do. See? And that includes scientists and artists alike. See, they know they're being moved. They can sense that. See, that they're being moved and being inspired, let us say, to create. That is to say, to let this thing happen through them. They can take, I guess you might say, they have a right to claim cause, that they're causing it. They can take some level of responsibility for it, but they're co-creating. We are co-creators of what it is. That's the best we can do, is co-create it. Because you know you need the sun, you need the moon, you need the planets, you need the solar system in place, right? And not going bananas, but in place, right? In harmony, in balance, doing what it does so that we can continue to do what we do. Because as soon as that goes out of whack, we are out of whack. It's not what you do. A lot of what you do is not what you do.
Well, yeah, but I guess the point is that you do pursue whatever goals you want to pursue, and you improvise and adapt, and that's your will, and people are very effective. But the question that a lot of people don't, so it feels as though they're in control, and they are. But the question is, where do these goals
Well, you see,
come from?
in the creative process, there's no question. There is no question, because in the creative process, it's happening.
Sure.
See, so this is my point as a musician. There's no question about it. It just happens, like breathing. If you have that kind of, let's say, connection with the music, where the unconscious and the conscious work together. They work together, not normal. They work together.
That's a difficult.
Then your content, your musical content, is partly unconscious. See? And that means it's strange to you and others, and thus it's considered creative. Because nobody knows what's going on, but it's good. See, the idea is to trust that what it is without you involved in it is better than when you're involved in it. So if you think your products now are good because you're so involved in it, what's going to be like going on when the time comes when you're no longer involved with it, but you're letting it come through?
Right.
That's the next stage.
Yeah, I agree.
That's an advanced stage.
Well, the technical term, there's a whole way of thinking about this in neuroscience, and it's totally in agreement with what you're talking about.
I think it's called native common sense.
Well, the word I use is harmony, because
Native common sense. Right? Native common sense. It's not even valued as just harmony, okayness.
Right.
It's beyond that. It's perfect.
To understand okayness, the trick is you have to understand how not okayness arises.
Well, it's already not okay. Therefore, okayness is needed. So we let it be what it is.
Well, it's a difficult problem.
It's not a problem.
Well,
For the natives, it's not a problem. You have to understand, your flavor of it is part of the problem and theoretical science. See? Whereas the native, as common sense, is the approach of letting it happen. See? With this higher intensity of intuitive understanding.
But to get to that level...
No, you're already born at that level. You see, we've gone against that level in society for the most part. That's why you have retreats for people to get away from their programming and the avoidance of the intuitive approach.
But the retreats, it's not as though they go there and then they snap their fingers and all of a sudden...
No, the retreat is a step on the path of quieting the neuroses, right? The thinking, the stinking, mental stinking, right? The assumed intelligence, to enable the true intelligence, the intuitive,
So-
irrational
Right.
intelligence, to start to have the freedom to manifest.
So that's the real practical question, as far as I understand it. How do you get from where?
You're already there.
No.
So you deny that you're already there, and that's the problem with the world. It's in denial about what already is the case. If they just quiet down, it's already the case. Remember, I'm a musician already from birth, for the most part.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is that there is practice, there's
Yeah,
thinking
practice.
about it, there's training, and then there's transcendence. There's going beyond all of that.
But transcendence is a process. It's not a moment. It's not an instant.
No, it is reality. It's not even a thing. It's the nature of life. Transcendence. See, that means nothing happens. That means there's no thinking or stinking in the way of what it is always already doing.
But
It's
how does
always
it,
doing it.
how does a person get there?
By stopping not being there. You have to
I
stop
don't
not being there.
understand.
The question is intentionally painfully simple
Yes, so
for
that's
the
what.
response.
That's why the Dharma is important, see, for some people. But it doesn't matter what your work is, playing, thinking, teaching, singing, right?
So-
Robotics, sailboat making, it doesn't matter. Airplane design, it doesn't matter. All of that is part of the same process. Either it's effortful or effortless.
Right.
The idea, I think, is to get to effortless, where the thing can do it by itself, ultimately.
But how do you?
No, it's not how. It's recognizing that that process is already the living process, but it's how you obstruct it that is the thing to recognize.
Is it-
Obstructing it. It's already going on with everybody thinking otherwise, feeling otherwise, imagining and being otherwise, instead of letting it be what it already always is. As it is. It's called reality as it is. Don't touch it. Don't think it. And everything grows
Huh.
of itself. Garbage has to be thrown out, so that can be done selflessly. The bank accounts have to be taken care of selflessly, right? Defecating is a selfless process. Intercoursing is also a selfless process. See? Fighting is also very selfless when you look at it from a viewpoint. Conflict is selfless, but peace is also selfless. So we want to have a sense of moving towards the quietness of the inner levels of spiritual intelligence, creative intelligence, if we can call it that, where we know something greater can happen if we get out of the way of what it is. We're not saying you're in any disadvantage. No, you're doing what you feel you have to do. But the question then is, from a creative point, can you do more if you get out of the way of what it is? Huh? And you're saying you have an intuition about that as true, and your science, your field, has an intuition about that as true. And we're talking about the manifestation of the created product by way of effortless effort.
The question, maybe I can rephrase what I think you, in my own language, what I think what I'm getting. So you're saying that in order to achieve this state, this effortlessness, the way to achieve
It's
that.
already there. You see, hold on. It's not something you create. You facilitate by being open to what it already is. It's called relaxation. We use the term of unconscious sleep. That's already there. That's where everyone is getting their healing from their sleep. You go to sleep to rest. In other words, to recharge yourself. And so that's the same basis for yogis going into meditation, to recharge themselves. They shut everything out so that they can regenerate their circuitry, their intelligence, and their function.
So that then is the way.
That then is the process
The process
of allowing what already is
I
there,
see.
the unconscious, getting closer to merging consciousness with the unconscious.
So then the way to get there, to get to this enlightened state is is to not even. Well, this is the whole question.
There's no question.
We're talking about
you are talking
wonderful
about
place.
You're talking
it's
about
so great at this place.
No,
And I'm saying, how do I get there? And
you're
I'm
already
not-
there. When you shut up, you're already here.
But I know. So,
But you can't shut
how
up.
do I realize? That
You
I'm
cannot shut up. Right? Your machinery does not permit you to stop thinking and what is the word saying? Creating thought.
So maybe I can offer the question. The Buddhists have the vehicles. They have the path. They have their lineage of teachers. They have what they teach. There's a course of study.
No, that's the training. Talking about that earlier.
So are you asking about the training required to?
Well, but the point is not to say that the training is the thing. The training is the method by which to recognize the always already existing here now reality. It's here now. The unconscious is here now.
And so that
That's
exists
what
without
you
training.
recover the sense of the unconscious, the majesty of the unconscious that we're being conscious of. So we're merging consciousness with the unconscious. Clearing the way by bypassing or cutting through neuroses for the creative to manifest more
So
of itself.
bypassing and cutting through the neuroses. Maybe that's the. So can I, by relaxing in a certain way,
Yes, you can.
arrive at this place?
You can. You're already there. So you're already there.
That's the.
That's a
part that I'm stuck
paradox.
on.
That's the paradox.
Yeah.
You're already where you want to be. You have to realize
But
that.
I'm already also other places. I mean, maybe I'm there, but maybe
Well,
I can't see that I'm there. I'm not sure.
Well, you're not surrendered to what we're talking about. You haven't given yourself to that because it's not as real to you at this point as it may be later on. But since you have agreed that some of this, let's say, theory, right, of creativity, based upon an understanding of the unconscious doing it its own way, you sense that there's some validity to that and reality to
Oh
it.
yeah, I
And
wouldn't say it's
we're
more
talking about effortless creation, which has to be a fact of life. Okay?
Yeah, that's.
It
more
is a
than
fact
that.
of life.
It's more than that. I mean, the state you're describing, the effortless harmoniousness. That's the high. I think that's the highest state you can achieve as a living thing. That's the desired state.
If you know that, then you have to feel that. If you feel that, then you need to be vulnerable to it. If you can be vulnerable to it, you're getting closer to what it is. See, it's not you. It's not you. It is you. See, the true you underneath the layers of the programming that you have thus far been using to accomplish your intended purpose this lifetime, which is to manifest robotics. See, a noble science, no doubt. It's part of the creative process. But we're not talking about that. That's a separate issue. What you create with your instincts to create is a separate issue. We're talking about whether you can accomplish it with effortlessness or not, and whether or not effortlessness can produce a better product in its own time, in its own way.
Can I ask about? You mentioned practice to get beyond a certain.
Not to get to access nowness.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so there to that end there must be good practice.
So what
and,
we're talking about is releasing the neuroses
yeah,
instantaneously into nowness, which is the fact and the reality.
and there's a vast field of options for people to practice. They can do vipassana, they can do yoga, they can.
Yeah, but it's simple. It's a snap now.
So if you have
So
an
it's a-
hour to do that,
It's a snap now. See, everything else is avoiding what it is. We have to be careful of that. See, so now, boom, here, no, not anywhere else. Okay, so we'll go into the depths and the infiniteness of the now in order to get to what they're talking about in terms of the realization of true heart radiance, How are you going to have that kind of realization unless you're so stopped in the now to start to consider what it could be as anything. See? So if the masters are saying it is in nowness, see, the emptiness of nowness, and they're not speaking a lie, huh? They stop so infinitely that they know what now is. They're infinitely now-ness. So, native common sense. Stopping, which is impossible for most people. We can't stop anything. Everything is machinery. We're going on and on and on and on, which is serving its own purpose, but not the highest purpose of knowing nowness necessarily. So your question then.
Yeah. Well, Joe was asking about cultivating an awareness of or a reality that is what you're describing.
Cessation is the best word then. Stop thinking otherwise. And fall into it. It already is present. It's not everything else, necessarily. Everything else counts. But what this is the basis for anything and everything else. It's nowness, unconscious, selfless, unconscious, selfless, emptiness, realization. Then the practice is counterproductive. Therefore you read that there's practice, there's no practice. See, as a higher stage, that is the avoidance of practice. See, it goes into deeper practice. And that's what we've been talking about from the get-go. See, effortless, selfless, effortless as selfless, doing or being. It goes back to native common sense of reality as it is. It already is.
Oh, as if so would you say the best strategy to accomplish what we're talking about is to just be silent, just be quiet, and get out of the way of letting it happen?
No, not exactly. But it is related to that, say. But it's not exactly that. Because it's neither noise nor silence.
What isn't? What
It is neither noise nor silence.
What?
It.
It.
Zero. It's not thought. In other words, one of the first things you need to do is get beyond thinking. You have to understand the dilemma of thought as a barrier, as an obstruction.
Yeah, I agree.
And equations as part of that problem, although they serve a purpose in the mechanical world for those who are involved at that level of practice or occupation. Doing. Okay, we're talking about the validity of the material sciences, doing what they do, creating what they create. No problem. That's not realization, except that's the realization, if we can use the word here, of how mechanical things work, and based upon the systems of thought or equations or formulas that create the positive results in that field to that degree. So we're not negating that. Scientists must continue to be scientists, but you don't have to be an unconscious, right? Unconscious in the negative sense. See, not knowing, not let's say, happy. You don't need to be unhappy. See, neurotic in what you do, because what you do can be handled by itself once you get to effortless practice. So you can be a scientist of the highest caliber, like, let's say, maybe somebody like an Einstein, who had to go to his fiddle, right, in order to access, his kadiddle, whatever that was, and feel better about himself, or because of the music, intuit results. See, by way of sound meditation, that showed up as scientific revelations, which is what music can do, right? Because it can bring you to the no mind, where you at least reduce all of your thinking nonsense, your formulas and equations, to a note that you can hear and enter into and travel to the truth of what it is you seek. We are born of the superfine. See? Out of the superfine we have manifested. See? The ultra fine. Basic essence of the heart, of the universe, all creation. Infinite universe. From before its form, in this form, and way after its form, beyond this form, see, as the eternal, the mind of the Creator, God, creative energy itself, infinity, see, continues to unravel itself as it is, infiniteness. Gone, beyond comprehension. Mind-blowing godness. That's native common sense. Native common sense. Already realized. Then you have to live from the already realized, if you can. We can say that might require discipline, coming back down to the basic truth of the heart essence, in the flower, in the water, in the air, in the ethers, in the planets, in every being, in everything, all the way to nothing essence, the nothing essence, also known more as emptiness, radiance, emptiness, fullness. Everything is empty of self and no self. Originally, presently, and ultimately. Yeah. Heart essence is presence. It's present. Heart essence is here. Yeah. Heart essence is nature. At heart essence level. Yeah. It's compassion, love, and mercy. We are all created of some admixture of that. See? That embrace communion, original communion. Surrender, openness, altogether. Heart essence. See, the beauty of it, the majesty of it. See? And for some, the truth of it. This is high practice in the traditions, see, of realization and enlightenment. See, compassion, open-heartedness, grace, radiance, being the sun itself. everything that we do or are called upon to do in this life is functional. Heart essence, however, is vital, it's critical. Yeah. And that applies to our, let's say, growing awareness of heart connectedness with all beings. That's part of a realization that we have as heart beings. Serene heart beings. Each one of us is that, but not full time. Some of us who recognize that much need to be full-time serene heart beings. That's what other beings need. Is the touch from the serene heart being to know it's okay. That's the science of love, by the way. Heart essence, love. Each one of us is that, but we have to be that in practice, in life, as much as possible.